This is Michael Popak, Legal AF. Another hour today, another loss for Donald Trump, this time at the Second Circuit Court of Appeal, where Donald Trump has tried desperately to take his state criminal conviction case, 34 felony counts, away from Judge Juan Merchan, who's just about to sentence him, and take it over to federal court. Why? Because he wants to try to get a direct shot to his friends on the United States Supreme Court. And one of the ways to jump the tracks is to argue that Donald Trump somehow was a federal officer at the time that he had sex with Stormy Daniels and paid her off to interfere with the election in 2016. And if he was a federal officer under federal color of law and within the scope of his responsibilities and duties, his job description as president, then he may have the right to take a case that was in state court to federal court. The problem is the timing. Timing is always wrong for Donald Trump. He's always a day late and a dollar short. That's why he loses almost all of his major cases, including this one. Today's ruling by a three-judge panel of the Second Circuit is that Donald Trump is not entitled to an emergency stay of the federal judge Hellerstein's decision that he does not have jurisdiction over Donald Trump's case post-conviction and pre-sentencing. Donald Trump doesn't want Juan Merchan, the judge in New York, the New York State Court judge, to sentence him for his 34 felony count conviction. That is obvious. The original sentencing date was in July. It should have been July 15th, but on July 1st, the United States Supreme Court made its landmark, unprecedented, unmoored, unhinged immunity decision, and that kind of threw, over the apple cart, meaning the judge had to postpone his sentencing from July. He pushed it off two more times all the way through what was supposed to be September the 18th. At the time that he set the September 18th date and decided he would rule on September 16th on the motion to dismiss and vacate the jury decision by Judge Merchan, Donald Trump didn't like that either. Didn't like the fact that he kept losing in his attempt to disqualify Judge Merchan at every appellate level and at the state level, and ran over to federal court begging and pleading for help. Well, the judge there, first stop on the train, is Judge Hellerstein. Judge Hellerstein took one look at the papers and said, you filed irregular papers, and I'm denying them on that ground. File a motion and ask me for permission the right way. They then filed a motion asking for permission to file what's known as a removal notice to take their case post-conviction and pre-sentencing, highly unusual, over to federal court. And the judge says, yeah, I've seen the papers. Yeah, it's denied. I don't have authority to do that. You're late. You have no further grounds to remove your case. Nothing about your argument holds water, is compelling. Good day. Donald Trump didn't like the answer to that, and so he ran off and filed an appeal with the highest court in New York, federal, the Second Circuit Court of Appeal. He also filed an emergency motion to stay the case because he wanted to stay Judge Hellerstein's order because he wanted to stop Judge Merchan from sentencing Donald Trump on the 18th of September. But after Donald Trump filed the notice of removal, after it was denied, after the Second Circuit appeal was filed, Judge Merchan, on his own, decided to postpone and give Donald Trump partially what he wanted. He declared about a week or so ago, with no opposition from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, that he was going to sentence not in September, but in November, 2 days before Thanksgiving. And Judge Merchan also very smartly, I'm going to tell you why in a moment, threw shade on Donald Trump. And be careful. It's under the category of be careful what you ask for because you might get it. Donald Trump didn't want to be sentenced before the debate. Donald Trump didn't want to be sentenced before the election on November the 5th. And the judge said, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, this is my artist rendering of the judge. Okay, all right, Donald, I'll give you to the 26th of November to sentence you, but I'm also not going to rule on the immunity decision and how it may or may not apply to your the jury verdict against you for 34 felony counts. What does that mean? That means that the judge blocked the exit. He locked it, barricaded it, and padlocked it and threw away the key to Donald Trump ever getting to federal appellate court on the issue of immunity before the election, because the judge isn't going to make the decision about immunity. And you have to exhaust all of your remedies, including with the trial judge below, before you're entitled to go to appellate court. Very smart, very wise by the judge. That's, again, under the category of too smart by half by Donald Trump and his legal team. So now Donald Trump is not going to get an immunity decision before the election by Judge Merchan. He has no ability to go to the United States Supreme Court through the federal courts. And so the Second Circuit took a look at all this and said, well, you don't have an emergency any longer. You're not going to be sentenced in the next a week or 10 days. So we don't have to give you that stay. We will allow a regular time period to go by. We'll brief the issue prior to the 26th of November, meaning sometime after the election. So neither Donald Trump nor the voter are going to know if Donald Trump is going to jail, or for how long, or if he's got any federal defenses, or if he's got an ability to go to the United States Supreme Court when they vote. And Kamala Harris and her campaign are going to be able to do exactly what she did in the debate, which is to suggest that Donald Trump is going to go to jail for a long, long time. And Donald Trump, other than making faces, can't do a darn thing about it. Because it's just as reasonable to assume that Judge Merchan is going to sentence Donald Trump ultimately for years in prison as it is that he's not going to sentence him at all. And so now that's what Donald Trump's left with. He can't say, well, my case is up on appeal. It's not up on appeal. Well, my case is up on the Second Circuit on an emergency application. It's not. It's been denied. Well, Judge Merchan did not sentence me to jail. All I had to do was community service. Nobody will actually know the answer to that before November 5th. It's that purgatory that Judge Merchan put Donald Trump in that he is now realizing that he's been had. He has been had. That's why be careful what you ask for. He should have gone forward. If I were Donald Trump and his lawyers, which of course I'll never be, he should have allowed the judge to make his ruling on the 16th of September about immunity. If he didn't like the results, if he was on the losing end of that decision, which would be likely, with the judge finding that the immunity decision does not apply to the jury verdict of 34 felony counts, then you could take your appeal on an emergency basis to the state court of appeals, starting with the First Department Appellate Division in New York, and get stays, appropriate emergency stays along the way of your sentence. But you didn't do that because you wanted to try to stay the sentencing because you were so scared, Donald, about going to jail. So you took it instead through a federal route. First stop on the train was a judge who already told you last May that you did not have the grounds to remove your case, Judge Hellerstein. You had to face him again, and he told you the same thing again. Then you took the appeal, and you've already lost the fundamental issue on appeal, which is whether they're going to give you additional time because of sentencing, because we don't have to worry about sentencing on September the 18th. The sentencing is now November 26th. So everything is now, all the can has been totally pushed beyond November 5th, allowing Kamala Harris to make her argument in closing argument to the American people about who they are voting for. I mean, as I've said before, nature abhors a vacuum. And if you don't give the American voter the information that they're looking for from a court system, they will fill in the blanks. And that's what we've got now with the new Second Circuit loss for Donald Trump. This is the second loss for Donald Trump just today. Earlier today, and I did a hot take on this, the Court of Appeals, which is the state court, highest court in New York, already on its own initiatives and papers, denied Donald Trump and dismissed Donald Trump's appeal to try to get out from under the modified gag order in this same case that Judge Merchan entered to stop Donald Trump from bashing court staff and Manhattan DA staff and their families and originally witnesses, although now witnesses are up for grabs and can be discussed. Donald Trump argued that that was core First Amendment presidential campaign speech, and the Court of Appeals just earlier today, the state court, highest court, took a look at it and said there is no substantial constitutional question that you have implicated here, and it is denied. So two denials, two different, one state, one federal appellate court, all coming down on Donald Trump's head after a disastrous debate performance. We're going to continue to tie all this together, to square the circle at the intersection of law and politics, and we do it one place and one place only. Find out what 40 million people a month already know, that the home for analysis of legal and political issues and commentary is Legal AF on the MeidasTouch YouTube channel. And that's it. You can pick us up on YouTube, on MeidasTouch, on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can watch us live record. You can chat with the anchors while they're live recording. If you're OG, old-fashioned, you like to pick up your podcast audio version like I do, then just plug in Legal AF wherever you get your podcast from, and we'll be there. And then I, Michael Popok, I do hot takes like this about every hour at that same intersection of law and politics. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.